Thank you for listening to Remake Rewind, a podcast where we decide if remakes or reboots should have happened, and we are back to a movie episode. And it's me, Mike, as always, and I've got my co-host, Mr. Alex Polishi. What's up, Alex?
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm good. How have you been the last couple weeks?
Just trying to maintain my sanity.
Yeah, I feel ya. It's gotten pretty crazy.
Yeah, I just find myself staring out windows and wondering what my neighbors are doing a lot.
Oh, well, that's a perfect segue into what we're talking about. I don't know if that was planned or what, but...
Totally organic.
What are we talking about this week?
This week we're talking about Rear Window and Disturbia.
That's correct. Rear Window I hadn't seen prior to this. Disturbia I had seen several times, but what about you? Have you seen these movies before?
Yeah, I forgot that I had seen Disturbia until I got about 20 minutes in, and then I was like, oh, wait, this all feels familiar.
Got it.
And I've seen Rear Window a couple times. I'm surprised that you've never seen Rear Window and you've seen Disturbia several times.
Well, so Disturbia, the reason I saw a couple of times was, 2007, Shia Labeouf was big.
Sure.
I think I may have still been working at the movie theater when this came out. I don't remember. But the reason I've watched it several times is I actually own it, not because I sought out owning that film, but because when the neighborhood Hollywood Video went out of business, they had a bunch of cheap movies, so I grabbed it because it was really, really cheap. They were doing things like buy 20 for $5, so yeah. It was one of the ones that ended up in that mix. So I watched it a couple times, and I was a pretty big Shia Labeouf fan back in the day.
I still am.
The last episode when I was talking about The Princess Bride, I mentioned that I started a couple novels, and there was one of the novels that I was writing. I had the idea if I were to cast the movie that Shia LaBeouf would be the main character. So there was a period of time where I was really into Shia LaBeouf.
Oh.
Not so much anymore, but...
I saw him getting coffee once.
Oh,
yeah, he parked his big silver truck illegally.
Oh, that sounds about right.
Yeah, but,
He's apparently not a good guy.
I don't know, he seems pretty rad.
No, he's like, everybody hates him. They hate working with him, except Steven Spielberg loves the guy.
Is he just like a dick, or is there like cancel stuff?
I mean, he was canceled before cancel culture was a thing. So he.
But I mean, has he assaulted anyone, or is he just kind of a prick?
Yeah, he's assaulted people. Not sexually assaulted people.
Oh, well, I'm okay with normal assault.
Gotten in drunk. He's been drunk in brawls. One of the things that a lot of people don't like about him was he did like some short film or something like that like a decade ago, and apparently he completely plagiarized it, like 100%.
Oh yeah,
word for word
I vaguely remember that.
And then when he got called out on it, first he tried to deny it, and then eventually he apologized. And then it turns out he plagiarized his apology word for word from some written work.
It's kind of funny.
So he got that weird shit. And that's when he did the paper bag over his head, the I'm not famous anymore. Yeah. And then right after that, he decided he wanted to do like this art installation where somebody else did this. He plagiarized this too. But there was this woman, I don't remember where, but she basically sat in a empty room with herself covered, or like her face covered, and let people come in, and there were props and stuff, and you can basically do anything to her.
Yeah, Marina Abramovich.
And so a lot of people like groped her and whatnot and did all that stuff. And so she wrote about it, and she was like, this has happened. So he did the same thing as an art piece and then said he was raped. And so a lot of people didn't like that because it's like,
I don't know about that.
You put yourself in that situation, you let them do it. Like, yes, technically you didn't say, yeah, I'm okay with you banging me, but you also like sat there and let them do it. So there's that kind of weird shit. And he's also like he's a method actor now. Like when he did that Fury movie,
which is awesome.
Like went and actually cut his face open because he didn't want like makeup. He wanted to actually feel the pain and the sweat in his wound and everything like that. And it's like, dude, you're an actor. And I'm not a big fan of like method acting per se. Like, I don't know. I feel like the whole point is you're an actor and you're supposed to pretend to be the person. And I don't think mentally it's a good idea for people to like become the person they're playing. But
some of our best actors and favorite performances are method actors, though.
There are like
Brando, Ledger, De Niro.
Performance. I mean, Brando is not a method actor, right?
Wasn't he?
He wasn't a method actor. No, he read all his lines off of cue cards.
All right. Was he not earlier on in his career?
His movies. Maybe early on, but as soon as he was famous, he got entitled and lazy.
Yeah, I've seen that Christopher Reeve interview.
Yeah, Christopher Reeve said that. Val Kilmer said it. Even on The Godfather, he read all of his lines off of cue cards. So, yeah, whatever. But anyway, let's get into our topics, I guess. Rear Window. Do you want to give me your 90-second kind of elevator pitch for the movie to summarize it?
James Jimmy Stewart, as he's known by his friends, is cooped up in his house with a broken leg and is taken to watching all of the neighbors and their daily activities for entertainment. And he finds that he thinks one of his neighbors is guilty of murdering his wife. The guy's wife, not Jimmy Stewart's.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, that might be a cool movie too.
That would be, I mean, it seems like a lot of movies are like that, but
not if you're locked in your house.
Right. I mean, I guess that really fits with the theme of our lives right now. We're all kind of quarantined and stuck in our houses, but
I felt a lot of things that I wasn't expecting watching these.
I really liked Rear Window a lot more than I thought I was going to.
Yeah, I did too.
And
I do too.
It's one of those movies that I hadn't watched for a long time. Katrina was surprised that I hadn't seen it, but I think the reason I hadn't gone and watched it was this movie is so prevalent in pop culture that you kind of felt like you've seen it before, even if you hadn't.
Totally.
So like Family Guy did an episode on it. The Simpsons has an episode on it. And those are the ones I can think of just off the top of my head. But I know there are a lot of other TV shows too. I feel like Rugrats even did an episode.
That sounds right.
Like this. Yeah. So it just permeated culture so much that I feel like I knew exactly what was going to happen in this movie. But I was really impressed with the dialogue in this film.
Oh, that's interesting. He's to single out the dialogue specifically.
Yeah, it was really snappy at certain points. I really liked the nurse. I can't remember her name. It was like Sophia or
I think it was Stella.
Like that. Stella, that's what it was. Yeah. The nurse was great. She had these like long rants about how she predicted, the Great Depression and all these different things.
She had a lot of thoughts about marriage.
Yeah, like she was really funny, and I also really liked Grace Kelly in this movie.
Yeah,
she was great.
Well, it feels like
James Stewart's always good.
I feel like all of the the characters and their points of views are all very well thought out there, which is in contrast to Disturbia, where it feels like it's just kind of like, all right, we got this guy, he's going to do this thing, he's got to have a girl, so she's around. They're just kind of two-dimensional. I mean, actually, I think the characters in Rear Window are a little two-dimensional, but they have substance. I think that's what you're talking about. I agree.
Yeah. I think they had some really good chemistry and they played well off of each other. I do agree that they were kind of two-dimensional. Like Stella and Lisa really turned around really quick and were 100% on board almost immediately.
Well, they're there
with James Stewart's stuff.
Right. And they're there to service James Stewart's character. Like, they're in his orbit, those characters are reacting to his character, which is a little transparent and can be boring, but at the same time, they have very specific beliefs and points of view that he has to deal with, which makes them interesting because there's substance.
Right. I think the nurse was really funny. I don't know if she really added much to it. Where I kind of disagree with you is on Lisa, because Lisa was initially kind of skeptical, and then there was like one detail about the purse, and then all of a sudden she was like, I know women, women would never leave their jewelry. They would never leave their purse. They would never let their jewelry sit in their purse because it will get scratched. And then all of a sudden she starts deducing all these things and figures out that there's no way in hell the wife actually left.
Yeah.
So I really liked that. Like, I did not expect that. I expected her to just be a nagging woman, which is kind of like set up that way because at the beginning of the movie, James Stewart gets a call from his publisher at the magazine he works for. And his boss essentially was like, you should go get married. He's like, nah, I don't want to get married. Domestic life sucks. And women nag and blah, blah, blah. And so when Lisa shows up, you're expected, and she's beautiful and she's rich. And you kind of expect that from a character like that. And she's nothing like that. She's warm and bubbly and really supports him and like supports what he wants to do. And, she pushes back a little bit. But then when she gets engaged, she fully commits to this whole conspiracy.
Yeah.
And I found it to be refreshing. She was not what I thought she was going to be at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you. I think that's all great. She definitely got more interesting in the second half of the movie.
Absolutely.
She becomes more interesting when she takes on the qualities of our lead actor, though.
Yeah, I guess.
All I'm saying is that they're like the characters, those secondary characters revolve around him, which is not a knock. Just
Right. Well, I mean, really, the whole movie does.
Yeah.
So what are some highlights in this movie for you?
The production design, the set that they built for this movie is incredible. That whole, it wasn't shot on location.
Insane.
It's an entire set that they built. And I think it's based on an actual
like
courtyard.
10,000 lights or something.
Yeah.
That they use to simulate sunlight.
Yeah. And it's gorgeous. And the way it's all laid out is very aesthetically pleasing. I like the use of color too.
Yeah. I was really impressed with that. And we're lucky to see color on this because they actually damaged the film master. And they honestly thought it was destroyed, like all the color was gone, but they hired the best film restorers to get it back to pristine condition, which is obviously what they would have had to do to get us a digital copy so we can stream it. But I was really impressed with the colorings too. It was very vibrant.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that until this morning, actually, that the print had been left to rot in the Paramount vault. And a friend of mine said that she's never seen it in color, and I was like, "Oh, well, it was shot in color. What do you mean?" She's like, "No, I've only seen it in black and white. I have a VHS of the movie in black and white." And I had to do a lot of internet scouring to find out that it was damaged, and they had to restore it.
Yeah, well, and what's interesting is that it actually was like out of commission for like 30 years. So, for whatever reason, this is part of a group of 5 movies called the 5 Lost Hitchcocks. So basically, from until 1984, a lot of these movies were not available. So it was this one, The Man Who Knew Too Much, Rope, The Trouble with Harry, and Vertigo, could not be shown anywhere. Like nobody had streaming or distribution rights to it. ABC actually illegally played this movie in 1971, and they just went for it and hoped they weren't going to get sued, and they didn't.
ABC don't give a fuck.
Yeah, so these movies were actually bought back by Alfred Hitchcock, and then it was left to his daughter as part of his legacy, and she eventually relicensed the movies to, be distributed again.
Yeah.
So like almost all of those 5 movies were all re-released in theaters in the 80s.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, this movie had a really interesting history on that, but yeah, the set design was insane. Some of the actors actually lived in their apartments during the downtime, and some never even left. Alfred Hitchcock stayed in the main character's name is Jeff, or Jeffries. He stayed in the apartment the whole time when he wasn't working. He used it as an office. Yeah. So it's pretty insane that they built a semi-functional little city.
Yeah, it's awesome. Feel like they don't, well, I guess they didn't do it a lot back then either, but it feels like that doesn't really happen anymore. But then again, I guess they're building entire planets for Guardians of the Galaxy and Avengers and stuff. So.
Right. I mean, they're building 20-foot sections of planets and putting it across a blue screen, not green screen anymore, blue screen.
I've seen some green ones.
There are some, but they're a lot. It just depends on what else is going to be on there.
Speaking of Jimmy Stewart living in his office, I feel like you really feel that in the movie, and that's one of the things I've kept on finding myself thinking about, was that the entire movie takes place in this guy's apartment, and eventually it gets into the courtyard a little bit, but like we are in his apartment 95% of the movie.
And it's tiny.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of angles. It doesn't feel distractingly claustrophobic, but you notice it. Like I felt. It's pretty cool.
And you could see why he feels that way, because he's an adventure photographer, and he talks about how he's gone to Pakistan and Africa, and he's been shot at by, enemy soldiers and pirates and all this thing. So you really can see why he hates being cooped up. And he's only got a week left by the time this all happens.
Yeah. That was another thing that I really liked about this movie versus Disturbia, or you just see how well done it is in this movie, that the romance subplot really dovetails nicely with the main plot. I agree. He can't settle down with her because he feels like she's not adventurous enough. So she becomes adventurous when he brings her into this plan to figure out if his neighbors are murdered.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, it's just nice. That's what makes it a perfect movie, or near perfect movie. That everything just like makes sense and dovetails and works together and builds on each other.
And it's paced perfectly.
Yeah.
Like the movie
Disturbia,
is just under 2 hours. Yeah, this movie's just under 2 hours, and it doesn't feel that way. I watched this movie, I was engrossed the entire time, and I really enjoyed it. And I liked that even though a lot of his neighbors, like all of his neighbors, you don't really see. Like, some of them have some lines of dialogue, but you kind of get a feel for the personality. Like the one he calls Miss Torso, who's a ballerina, who's dancing around, and you see her. One of the first shots in the movie, you see her topless from behind, stretching and dancing. And I was like, damn, this is pretty risque for the time period. And he's just lecherous kind of watching her. And the nurse says something at one point, like, you must have a hormone disorder because I take your temperature every day and it hasn't raised 1 degree in a month. And you've been watching these bathing suit beauties.
To be fair, there's just the one.
Right. Well, and then you have the cop at one point, like his cop friend comes and visits, and the cop friend, to your point earlier that the characters are two-dimensional, he's just, the entire movie, he's just like, nope, there's no way.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't think, based off anything, he doesn't think that this guy's a killer. And he looks at the neighbor and he's like, damn. And then Jimmy Stewart's just like, hey, how's your wife? Like, being kind of a prick about this guy staring at his neighbor, even though that's what he's been doing for presumably weeks.
Yeah, but
it's a little weird.
That's his neighbor,
That's his eye candy.
Yeah, that's right. Don't look at my girlfriend.
But yeah, I mean, the movie, it's a very simple plot. Like, he hears a woman scream, and he doesn't see the woman after that, and he sees a guy packing, and he's just like, oh, this guy probably killed his wife. And he just kind of gets delusional. And what I like about this movie, compared to, even though we're not talking about Disturbia yet, but compared to Disturbia, there are points in this movie where you could theoretically think, maybe this guy's just stir crazy and has cabin fever, and
totally.
like this isn't real, and then, which is not the case in Disturbia at all. But there are a lot of things that I like about this movie. Like I mentioned, the Stella's whole dynamic, talking about how she predicted the stock market crash. Because General Motors was slowing down production on cars, and if General Motors is slowing down, everybody's going to slow down. And
yeah,
I just really like the characters in this movie.
Yeah, she's just
the whole thing with the dog, everything. Like,
what was your favorite neighbor besides Ballet Girl?
Yeah, besides Ballet Girl, I really felt for the neighbor whose dog got killed.
Yeah, that was sad.
Because she, basically the guy, I don't know why he did this, but the guy hid the knife and saw in the garden next to everyone. He didn't bury it very deep, but the dog kept going for it, so he killed the dog. And the woman who owns the dog, like, starts screaming. She's like, who did this?
It's a typical 50s lament out the window.
Right. You guys are all terrible. And everybody comes to the windows and their balconies and are looking around. And then a bunch of people are partying upstairs. And they're like, let's get back to the party.
Well, it's just this woman yelling out the window. They're visitors there. They don't know what's going on. One of my favorite parts of that scene was the... Oh, no, you go first. Sorry, you're still talking about the dog.
No, that's it. I just felt for as a pet owner.
Yeah.
If either of my cats, I found them and they had like a broken neck, then knowing that somebody killed them, I would fucking lose it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that part was sad. Got me a little choked up. Another one of my favorite parts of the movie is during this section where she kind of gives this speech out of her window, and Jeffries is watching her. Jimmy Stewart is watching her, and then looks down at the neighbor who he suspects of killing his wife, and looks through his window, and all the lights are out, but you can see that he's smoking a cigarette because the cherry on the cigarette is getting brighter and darker as he smokes it.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
That's cool. Well, and I like how he used that as another thing. Like, he knew the dog was dead, so he didn't come to the window.
Exactly.
Kind of thing. And they have what I thought was kind of crazy, and they have to do this in the movie to make some tension. But he wrote a note like, I know what you did to your wife, or something along those lines. Yeah. And he has his girlfriend go and drop it off, and she knocks on the door and slides the note under, and like she just barely doesn't get caught. And there's this, it's almost like an episode of Scooby-Doo where you see her go down the stairs and then back up the stairs and then into the courtyard as he's moving around the apartment, trying to stay clear. But it's, once again, just shows like how cool that set is that they designed, that it's functionally an apartment building.
Yeah, and that's also like not that Hitch had any reason to bow to studios at that point, but it shows a lot of restraint on his part, or commitment to the idea that we're watching all of that through Jimmy Stewart's apartment. We're not going down into the neighbor's apartment to see what it looks like from the inside. Like, we have to see it like he sees it through the windows across the courtyard. And again, comparing it to Disturbia, that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we should start wrapping this one up and kind of just get to the end. I found the end to be a little weird.
It wraps up really fast, which I think is a thing in the 50s, or just in mid-century cinema.
It wraps up in like 5 minutes. So eventually he calls the neighbor and he was like, I know what you did, you son of a bitch. You killed your wife. And so the guy figures it out. He sees him looking out through the window, because like the one time he forgot to turn off the lights, which is something I really appreciate about this movie, is he recognizes like when you have the lights on at night, it's like, and you're looking from outside, it's like being in a fishbowl or an aquarium. Yeah. Like, you can see in. So he keeps constantly turning off the lights when he's spying, but the one time he didn't, Lars, the bad guy, sees him. So he comes over and just is like beating the crap out of him. I mean, throws him out the window, which that's funny. But before he was able to get to Jimmy Stewart, Jimmy Stewart's taking pictures of him with the flash.
Yeah.
Because this is like an old school camera and it like destroys the bulb. And so the guy's like blinded. And then he takes another picture and he's blinded again. And he's like having to screw light bulbs really fast. And I'm like, you know what this guy's doing? Why aren't you not closing your eyes to get close the gap?
Or just like shield them a little bit.
Right. And he doesn't do that. And you see just before he takes the picture that, James Stewart puts his hand over his face kind of thing. And no, that part of that could be because it's dark and we need to be able to see that. Maybe it's dark enough that the bad guy can't see that, but still, it played a little weird. And then it had this kind of
the effect,
wonky effect where like when he throws him out the window, the frame rate sped up.
Oh, it sped up for like all the characters running up. I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, it was weird.
There's a series of like 5 or 6 shots where the frame rate is like doubled for everything to make it seem more.
Yeah, everybody's
urgent.
running to try to catch him before he falls out the window, and everything's running. But then you have this weird effect, and I don't know how they do it. I assume they take frames of the like zooming in on the ground, and then cut out James Stewart from a bunch of different frames and paste him onto another film. I'm assuming that's how they do the falling effect.
Yeah, because it didn't.
But because they do that, it looks like there's scratched. Like I worked at a movie theater for years and know what scratched film looks like on a projector, and it kind of looked like scratched film.
Yeah,
because
it looks out of place.
They pasted a couple things.
Yeah.
But it's super wonky. But it's
got a charm.
It is a movie that's 80 years old, 70, 80 years old. Yeah. So it's cool, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too. Definitely.
Any closing thoughts before we move on?
Do you want to talk about why that dude's hair looked weird?
Which dude? The bad guy?
Yeah, Lars.
With the fake gray hair?
Yeah. Everybody.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Everybody in the movie, looks gorgeous and has amazing hair and outfits and stuff. And this one dude has like a very obvious wig or like not natural hair. And I don't have it in front of me now, but Hitchcock decided to base that character, at least like visually, on a producer that he didn't like or something. So I think they had to like really stress to make his hair look like what Hitch wanted it to look like.
Got it. So it's like a Lord Farquaad situation in Shrek.
Yeah, there you go.
Got it. All right, so before we move on to the next movie, Disturbia, I got to ask you, bud.
What are you doing? What are you doing? No, what are you doing? What are you doing? No, what are you doing? What are you doing?
So what have you been up to, bud?
I've been binging The Good Place.
Oh, that's good. Have you watched it before,
No,
or is this like your first viewing?
Yeah, it's great.
It's solid. Did you finish it?
No, I'm on season 3 right now. Is there a 4th season?
Oh, there is a 4th season.
Okay, so I got to find that on Hulu or something.
It might not be on Hulu anymore. So they were dropping the new episodes as they were airing. But typically, once the series is done, I think they pull them off a month after. Okay. And then it will be on Netflix in a couple months. But season 4, the last 4 or 5 episodes of the series are some of the funniest moments of television I've ever seen. I'm really excited for you to
awesome.
Get to that.
Yeah, I'm stoked. What else? I've been watching a lot of movies, so kind of revisiting stuff though. I watched Fury Road this week, Zootopia, which was
so good. One of my favorite movies of all time. I saw that 5 times in theaters.
Zootopia, yeah, it's great.
Oh, not Zootopia, Fury Road.
I know. That's a little joke. Zootopia was surprisingly good
Zootopia,
too.
though.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I really like that.
I watched that Beastie Boys documentary. Did you see that?
No, it's on my queue though.
Yeah,
I definitely want to watch it.
Really good. I really enjoyed that. I watched both the Godfather movies.
Oh, both of them, not the third one?
The what?
Not the third one?
Which one?
You said both of the Godfather movies.
Both of them.
There's 3.
What now?
So not the third one.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Got it.
Actually,
so
I probably will end up watching 3 just because you got to.
I haven't actually seen the third one. I stopped because I heard it was terrible. And,
I mean,
I talked plenty about my feelings on The Godfather. Right. So I watched the Entourage. I don't know if I brought it up last week, the last episode, but Katrina and I started watching Entourage, and it took a little bit, but about a season and a half in, it just clicked, and I fucking love it now.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Like, the characters are terrible, but the show is just, it's so easy to watch, and it's so entertaining.
Yeah, man, it's cotton candy.
Yeah, it's really good. I watched the first 2 Terminator movies for Ruin My Childhood,
Nice.
The podcast I do with Katrina. That was great going back and watching those. I also... I didn't bring this up in any of our other episodes, which I don't know why, but you brought up the last episode that you started playing Doom Eternal, and I got the Xbox pass is, that's like $15 a month, and you get like streaming 100 games or whatever.
I didn't know
but I really wanted to play Gears of War 5, so in the last 2.5, 3 weeks, I got through Gears of War 5, Wolfenstein 2, played The Witcher 3 for a little bit, didn't really like that one, and I started Rage 2. So I've gotten a lot of video game time in quarantine, so that's been good.
Yeah.
Almost done with Westworld. I'm almost caught up. I'm 2 episodes behind.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about that. Probably not during our What's New segment, but I have mixed feelings about this season.
It's funny. A lot of people I know really like this season, and I have mixed feelings about the series in general. Like, it really falls apart if you think about any single aspect of the show.
Right. It's this season is fucking gorgeous though. Like seeing what they did with
the LA stuff is like so the cool. City's great. The vehicles are interesting. I like the robots stuff, like the mech like robots, the ones that aren't like people are pretty cool. Yeah, actual robots.
I think let's see, a robot is not a person. A cyborg has AI, right? Or no, cyborg is part person, and android is AI.
Cyborg is part person, android. So they're technically androids if you really want to, just like cut those hairs or whatever you call it.
All right, who's your favorite android in film history?
My favorite android in film history? God, that's tough. I like Bishop in Aliens.
Oh,
Bishop's pretty cool.
I was going to say, what's his face from the first Aliens? Ian Holmes' character.
Oh, I don't remember the character's name.
Yeah, Ian Holmes' character. The one fucking android.
Ian Holmes. Yeah. With the weird head where it moves from a dummy head to his head, like super awkwardly. Yeah.
Androids are sick.
I like Bishop. I think he's a cool character.
It's Lance Henriksen, right?
Yeah, Lance Henriksen. Yep, that's him. I like Aliens a lot. I rewatched that not too long ago, like a month and a half ago. Really enjoyed it. I think we should get into Disturbia, and I'm ready to go. So I guess it's my turn to pitch this one. It's basically a remake of Rear Window, but legally they cannot call it that because they got sued. Essentially, Shia Labeouf plays a guy named Kale. He feels guilty for his dad's death because they got in a car accident. He was driving, so he starts acting up. He punches out a teacher, and he is under house arrest, and he sees his neighbor being a little creepy, so he thinks his neighbor killed a woman. And he just basically stalks this guy and also stalks his hot girlfriend neighbor chick.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. And that's why it got made.
Yep, pretty much.
You know what's funny? I'm not going to... I had a good time with this. I didn't think it was fantastic.
It's a fun
I think it's
movie.
Perfectly forgettable. But, did what it set out to do.
It's of its time, very much.
Yeah, and I think those things that date it are really what holds it back, too, from being a more memorable movie. But in its defense, I will say I wouldn't necessarily consider it a remake. Because it's I think, obviously it comes from the same place and is inspired by, but I think it, has some specific choices where it tries to set itself apart and is trying to reimagine it. You know what I mean? As opposed to a straight remake. Right. Where it's like, we're just doing it. We're doing it again,
Well, originally it was going to be a straight remake. It sounds like they didn't technically own the rights to the story. It Had to Be Murder, which is what Rear Window is based off of. And it's a short story. This was going to come out in the 90s.
It feels
but
like
they found out that there was a Christopher Reeve remake.
The television one.
Which, it went straight to ABC. So they decided to scrap it.
ABC is obsessed.
The option, you're right. The option expired, and so another studio got the rights to the script, and they were going to make it. They rewrote it and tried to modernize it a little bit. And the family who owned the Cornell Woolrich is the author of the story. They had the rights to the movie again, and they actually sued. They sued the production company DreamWorks. They sued Steven Spielberg, who's the executive producer of the film, who personally selected Shia LaBeouf for the movie. He loved Shia LaBeouf. He was really trying to groom Shia LaBeouf to be like the next Harrison Ford for whatever reason. But he groomed Shia LaBeouf for it, and they didn't sue Shia LaBeouf, but it went to court, and it was eventually thrown out because the judge was like, the short story has no substance. It has no real plot details, no characterization. And Disturbia adds teenage drama, teenage relationships, and humor. So you cannot say that this movie is derivative of the short story on which it's based off, which I think is absurd. It is very, very derivative. It is so derivative that people thought this was just a modern remake, but legally they can't call it that. But it is definitely meant to be a modern remake. It was supposed to be a remake originally. They were going to call it Rear Window, and then they found out Rear Window was being made by ABC and then scrapped it. So to say that it's not a modern remake is absurd, honestly.
I don't think it's absurd. That's a little harsh.
It's not. That's what they intended to be when they made it. They just got sued, so legally they can't call it that. But I guarantee if they were able to get the rights to the movie, they wouldn't have changed a damn thing other than in the opening credits they would have put based off.
I don't care why they changed anything.
Story.
I'm just saying that setting it in the suburbs as opposed to in the city, having it be a kid instead of a kid that's or a man that is set in his career. Setting it in present day versus trying to retell the 50s one. Those are all interesting changes. Whether or not they were executed while they worked is something else, but those are things that set it apart from the original. And that's why I would give it a little bit of credit and just say, maybe it's not a straight remake in the way that it ended up being.
Right. And it's a modern retelling of the story. And that's what this podcast is about, is it's not necessarily
saying... That's all I'm saying, retelling.
Hey, this is... But to say that it's not based off Rear Window or... Yeah, but that's what they have to say now. They have to say that it's not based off this movie at all, which is just not... It's just factually not true. It just... They got sued, so now they can't say that it has any ties to this at all, even though we know for a fact that it is rooted in being a remake to Rear Window. So
I think...
That's what I think is kind of funny about it. It is absolutely a modern remake, but they can't call it that.
Yeah, sure.
So this movie starts at like an 11 and then kind of ramps down and back up. Because like that opening scene with the dad's death is pretty brutal.
I was not expecting that to be that intense.
Yeah, well, it's kind of fucked up that like I can see the first car, that car cuts him off and then veers out of the way. There's no way that Shia Labeouf was going to miss that car. Like, that happens in real life all the time. But that second truck that hit them, there was no excuse for that. Like, what the fuck?
What, you mean for Shia's character?
So, no, for the second truck that hits the dad. So
there's no excuse for the filmmakers being that cruel?
Well, there's that, but there's also no excuse for that driver to have hit them.
Yeah. You're right.
It's like, that's just fucked up.
There's a few other things in this movie that kind of felt like that. Leaps in logic or whatever you want to call it. Little plot holes that amp the drama up a little bit, but fall apart when you think about them.
Right. Well, and there's also, to get back to my point very briefly, in regards to this, there's no way that this wasn't a remake.
Based on that argument that nobody
when
made.
They had right. No, they made this argument.
Yeah,
like there is a lawsuit about them saying, right.
That is
but
funny.
There is a scene when he's figuring out what his radius is, like how far he can actually get away from like the router, where you see this dog
on house arrest and he
has a shot collar,
ankle bracelet.
Right. So there's a dog that gets out of the house and it's very similar looking to the dog in the first movie. And I haven't seen this in probably 10 plus years, this movie. So like when I saw that dog, I was like, oh man, that dog's going to die. And it didn't, even though it's like, that was definitely put in there as a nod to the original.
Yeah, that's kind of a nice little moment too, where he recognizes that the dog has a shock collar and can't leave his yard. And he's in the same
he's like, yeah, I feel you, bud.
Cute.
Yeah.
You like to see it.
Yeah, there are a lot of things I like about this movie. As much as I want to say I don't like Shia LaBeouf anymore, he definitely has a charm.
Yeah.
He's easy to watch.
He's cute.
And apparently a lot of his dialogue is improvised. So DJ Caruso, the director,
DJ Caruso.
He helped rewrite the script and told Shia LaBeouf, like, hey, you're supposed to be a teenager, like, hip, make the lingo a little bit more hip for the youngsters kind of thing. So a lot of the dialogue was improvised to be more youth friendly, I guess.
I mean, it's very youth friendly. For better or for worse.
I don't there's certain things that I didn't like the Spanish teacher at the beginning of the class is just a dick. Like I kind of like he deserved.
I don't know, it's kind of interesting that to have a character who is just kind of a dick, because people in life are just kind of dicks, but it's hard to know where that line is, because I definitely felt that too. I was like, wow, dude, like be a little bit easier on him.
What? But take out the your dad died thing. Let's just say Shia LaBeouf was just an asshole student. That's not what teachers are supposed to do. You don't chastise a student in front of everybody else. You say, hey, you're going to hang around after class. We're going to talk. And you leave it at that. You don't get up in the student's face and be like, your dad, it's a good thing your dad's dead, because he'd be really disappointed in you.
Well, I think that was like the real sin of that scene, is that the guy, like, and we're talking about the Spanish teacher in this goofy little scene. We can get on to the rest of the movie, but that's the worst thing that he did, was that he's a big guy and he gets up into Shia LaBeouf's face, like menacingly. Like, if you're going to chastise a student, whatever, but you're going to do it from the front of the class. But if you like take steps into the guy's personal space and poke at him like that in front of people, yeah, that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, he got within like a foot
Yeah.
of him. Like he's well within that range. So yeah,
I think
like,
that teacher should
now
have been fired.
I could
Or
right.
suspended.
No, I can see the initial punch. Now where Shia Labeouf kind of fucked up, where I go, okay, you get the one, but then he like leapt and kept
I don't
punching
know.
the guy
You see-
while he's on
you
the
see
ground,
him
and
right
everyone
at
had to
that
pull
point,
him
dude.
off.
He's a teenager. I don't put that
Right,
past him at
but
all.
yeah.
Here's what I don't believe is him digging a spoon into the peanut butter jar and then dipping it in chocolate and then eating it and drinking a Red Bull at the same time. And it looked like he just went to town on that shit.
I could see one of those. Like I could see the peanut butter and then into chocolate. I
How
could
much
see
of that
that,
can
but
you
yeah,
do?
they were definitely
It looked like he had a whole bowl of
not
it.
a lot. I could do that for like a spoonful or
Yeah,
two.
yeah, no. It looked like he was like going to town.
Yeah, he was going town. Yeah. Well, and then it goes into this like, it's almost like two montages. There's a montage, mom comes home, and then another montage. So it's like two montages really quick.
All we ever see that
where
mom do
he's-
is come home, by the way. She's like never around.
No,
What
she's
does she
not.
do?
So like he goes home and he's playing Xbox, and then it cuts out, and then he's like watching Cheaters, and then he like goes upstairs. This is what I was really confused by. So he's like watching TV, he's playing Xbox, he's having his snacks, and then he goes upstairs and you see him putting a magazine down and zipping up his fly, and I'm like, is this supposed to be implying that he's masturbating, or was he just reading a magazine while he was taking a
No,
shit?
dude, he had to take a shit because the Red Bull and peanut butter and chocolate fucked him up.
The Red Bull and the chocolate. But it was just weird. But then there's another there's a masturbation joke later where he's trying to scratch underneath his ankle
I like
monitor.
that. That one was funny.
And you just hear him like, and you just see him like just hear things bumping, and then it's just him scratching. Like, it just seemed like a little weird to have like two semi-masturbatory
I
jokes.
think the first one was a
in that-
pure rumbly-tumbly situation.
It just didn't come off as that because he was watching Cheaters and he was just like looking at the girl on there. Like it just ends with him looking at a ratchet ass girl, and then he goes into the bathroom and it's just like, I don't know. I thought it was a little weird.
Yeah, I mean, I got a better example of that for you actually. He is playing Xbox and his Xbox Live goes down and he can't connect, which he actually doesn't seem that bothered by. And then later he's trying to buy some music on iTunes. And it says that his Apple ID doesn't exist, which I don't think is how that would happen. But
that's not how that works. I wrote that down as well. You can't just cancel that, especially in 2007.
And then his mom comes in.
Nowadays, there is a service.
And then his mom comes in and she's like, that she reveals that she took him off Xbox Live and broke his Apple ID. And that just feels like 3 beats to say one thing.
Right.
Redundant.
Well, and then also it's just like, that's not how either of those things work. Like, the Xbox Live is you pay for a month or a year or whatever. Like, you don't just cut it off. Like,
yeah.
It would make more sense if she just stopped. She's like, yeah, we don't have internet.
Yeah, or she
anymore.
cuts the cable later on. She could have just done that.
She cuts the power cord off the TV in his bedroom. So I was like, that's a little bit more of a move that I appreciate. That makes more sense. I did like that System of Down started playing, and it was the most loneliest day of my life.
I made a note of that too. How much does that band suck?
Now, granted, I haven't really listened to them since middle school, but I fucking loved them back
I
in the
liked it in
day.
middle school too, but god damn, that song is annoying.
I've actually met a couple of the
really?
guys. I've
The
met
Republican
the
ones?
bassist and yeah,
Sick.
yeah. Well, I met them in Glendale. That for what you will.
What does that mean?
They're Armenian, and their Armenians tend to be pretty conservative.
Right. That's just like your opinion, man.
That's it.
I don't know if we should be talking.
I
about
mean, you
this.
straight out called them Republicans.
Well,
I'll
those
probably
two
edit this
gentlemen
out.
are very conservative. Has nothing to do with their race.
They are very conservative.
We here at Remake Rewind are friends to everyone.
That's not true. Not to racists or homophobes.
Yeah. All right. Now we've saved our reputation. Let's move on.
But yeah, then the movie just kind of gets weird. Like when he's watching his neighbor, like he's very lecherous with that. Like I feel way more uncomfortable with that than I did with him watching Miss Torso. But
it makes more sense that Shia is because he's a teenager.
Yes, it does make more sense. But like, yeah, it does make more sense. But he was leering, and there's a point where he hesitates when he sees her undressing for the first time. Like he puts his hand down and then kind of like, this is wrong. Like, and then does it anyway. And there are some problematic things with this movie throughout. Like it is really weird that the girl's into him. Like there's no reason for her to be into him at all. And
he's cute.
I mean, is he though?
No, he says that nice thing to her. He has a whole monologue.
Yeah, but even that was creepy. Yeah, but that's still creepy.
I'm not disagreeing that it's creepy, but I think she's giving him a little slack because she knows that he's just like stuck in there.
Right, and I can see that being the case, but like So this movie, they ended up, just to give you a little background, the director and Shia Labeouf watched Rear Window to kind of get in the mindset for this movie. So once again, come on. Straw Dogs, The Conversation, and then also Say Anything. And they wanted to make a movie that kind of combined all four of those. And you definitely see the Say Anything to an extent when she's throwing the party to make him jealous. And she keeps looking up at him, and he kind of calls her out like, enjoy your party, but don't look at me to see if I'm reacting. But he like sabotages the party by, putting his speakers up on the roof and playing like a sappy love song. And she comes up, and then they end up making out, and they actually miss the murder when they're making out. Like you see the blood splatter across the window when that's happening.
I think, correct. I think that actually is not the murder, though. I think he's cutted up the deer. Also a weird shot to include, though, because the whole movie is like from his perspective, and then we get a shot that nobody else sees. And
right. Well, it's also weird because it 100%, it could be the deer at that point, but I think the implication is that it's supposed to be the woman that he
in the
killed.
moment you're supposed to feel that, but then later we find out that he has a whole clean kill room.
Right. Which is, we don't really, or is that where he's prepping? It's very ambiguous, but also like, why would he be cutting a deer in that room? It doesn't really make sense. And like, why did he get? Do you think he actually hit the deer? Yeah, did he actually hit the deer, or do you think he did that for cover because he felt like somebody suspected?
No, because
him? The
car was. I think we're supposed to believe at the end that it was the girl's car with the dented fender. So I think he had to create a story to cover that up. So yeah, I think he just went out and killed a deer.
Got it. Okay. So this movie does a lot of the same things that Rear Window did.
All the more reason for him to cut the deer up upstairs in plain view of the neighbors, because then this guy. Played by David Morse, who I actually think did a great job.
Method actor. He refused to talk to any of the other actors.
Are you joking,
in this
or really?
Movie. No, I'm being serious.
Method acting's the way to go, man. This guy, as we see at the end, is so meticulous, and all of his activities are so well thought out that I do think he would be capable of going out, killing the deer, killing it in the upstairs, garage or whatever, with the lights on, spraying blood everywhere, just so the neighbors see that, and then he has an excuse for it, so it makes him look less guilty of potentially murdering young women.
But why not just do that in the garage with the door open or something? That's because you're definitely going to see it.
Yeah, I don't know. It was. I mean, now we're really getting into it, but I think it was at nighttime, and maybe.
But still, keep it in the garage and have the door open at some point so somebody can drive by and see it.
Maybe he didn't want to do it at night. I don't know. I mean, I think now we're getting into territory of like, hey, this movie's actually not that great.
Right. It doesn't really make sense because it's like, what sane person would bring a deer into their actual living quarters? Just, there's fleas and ticks and shit and everything. It's like, do that in your goddamn garage. Yeah. But once again, you said this is a shot that only we saw, and you're only going to see it from that guy's window. Yeah. It doesn't really make sense. Like, what was that shot for? Who was it for? It was only for us. Right.
And
as the viewers.
And they're not even like making a comment on how we're voyeurs of the guy being a voyeur or whatever, which might have been interesting, but that's not what they were doing.
So they end up going through this whole series where his friend comes back into town, and they enlist his friend, and the friend's like on board like immediately. The girl's pretty much on board immediately with thinking this guy's a killer.
Well,
I
have a note about that too. It's kind of similar to Grace Kelly, where all of a sudden she's just like into this stuff, right? And then there's also a thing that happens, in the middle of the movie there when he sort of like convinces her that he is cool or whatever in that little monologue that we were talking about. And where she like, I guess she gets on board with this stuff earlier though.
Okay. Yeah, she was totally helping beforehand.
I got something else to say about this, but I thought I was doing a good segue and I wasn't, so scratch all that.
So like he enlists the friends, the girlfriend basically follows the guy around at a hardware store. And then the best friend breaks into the guy's car to figure out how to get into the garage so they can look around the guy's house. So they go on like a whole nother level than Rear Window did, where they were actually breaking the law even more so.
Yeah, well, they
doing B&Es.
They broke. I mean, I thought that was actually a nod to Rear Window because he has the two women break into the guy's house.
But they never do break into the house.
Well, Stella doesn't, you're right, but Grace Kelly does.
No, she
climbs in through the window.
Oh, that's right. She does briefly. Yeah. She goes in there really quick and gets the wedding ring.
And then he catches her in there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that's when they start screaming and they call the cops and everything happen. That's right. So yeah, they do that, but they do it early, and then the friend plays a prank, pretends to be dead in the guy's closet, and then the movie, same thing. It just kind of ramps up. Like you think everything's gonna be fine. The cop the cop that is like kind of being a dick to Shia the whole movie because he is the cousin of the teacher, totally is on board with the killer. He's just like, he believes the deer story, he believes everything, and he leaves. And then David Morris just kind of decides at this point it becomes full slasher film. Like the mom is super into him. The mom goes to apologize and just try to say, hey, don't press charges, I don't want my son to go to jail. Like, everybody is on the killer's side. And then he just decides to smack Carrie Ann Moss into the wall, and then decides to come over and start to beat the shit out of Shia LaBeouf. Just magically, Ashley shows up out of nowhere, apropos of nothing. She's just there and jumps on the guy's back. And then he goes into the house. The cop comes, Net gets killed, and then Shia LaBeouf just kills him with some lawn shears. And then the movie just ends. They're just like getting the ankle bracelet taken off, and he's just like, they're all happy and great. And it's like, dude, you need some fucking therapy. You already needed therapy because you're dad, and now you actually killed a guy.
Yeah, he's gonna need to talk to somebody. I actually, I kind of had the opposite thought. I thought, compared to the way that Rear Window just like ramps up in the last like 10 minutes and then immediately ends, I thought this was kind of not the extreme opposite, but it sort of did the opposite, where they have to like tie up the love story, and there's like a little it ends on a comedy beat where the best friend is like watching them make out or whatever. Oh, and I think they do a scene with him getting the ankle bracelet off, and the mom and the probation officer are like joking around or whatever. Not probation officer, but whatever. Octavia Spencer. I mean,
more or less.
It's Octavia Spencer, right?
That wasn't Octavia Spencer. I don't even think it was Viola Davis either. I think you're wrong on both counts.
Let's go to IMDb.
It's definitely not Octavia Spencer. Viola Davis. She's very Viola Davis-esque, but I don't think it is her.
We're going to find out. Like, you're going to beat me to it.
No,
yeah, it's Viola Davis. Told you, motherfucker.
Oh, it was. Okay, cool. Yeah, Viola Davis doesn't joke. She's fantastic. She's too good for this movie.
Well, it's nice to have her there.
Yeah.
But anyway, it felt like it had a bunch of endings, which feels like very apropos of 90s teenager movies. But it was funny knowing that it's coming from Rear Window, and Rear Window does the opposite thing where it just ends. It's like, all right, well, he was the killer. Yeah, I mean, see you later.
Yeah. You're right. Well, this one, like, it does so much. Like, it's like the guy just decides to go full on, I'm going to kill everybody.
Well, they're loose ends.
Like the end of like
meticulous. I don't really have a problem with that.
But like, he's got it clear. He framed, like, he was going to kill. So my issue is, like, he just decides, oh, I need to go kill everybody now. So then he decides just really quickly, oh, I'm going to frame Shia LaBeouf for all these murders. Like, he's gonna kill his mom,
just for the,
and he's gonna kill his best friend.
Just those two, not the other ones, not the girls.
Right, but still, it's like, dude, there's no way that doesn't put a target on your back. You're just gonna leave anyway. Like, he'd have to leave, so why not just fucking leave?
Yeah, I had that thought too. Like,
that would make way more sense.
In the house with him, I was like, the police are outside. It's the same cop. Sam Witwicky is running around in your basement. Like, just leave. He ends up killing. He ends up killing this cop. He does a Steven Seagal neck snap and kills Officer Gutierrez. But I was like, why? Why is that even? And we don't see that he's particularly like driven by revenge or that he's insane or anything. He just likes killing people, and he's really smart about it. So it's a new thing that he would.
We know that he'd done this before. Right. He did it in Texas before. And killed a bunch of people and stuffed them in the walls, and he left. It was like, and he had been there for years, presumably doing this for years. So it's like, you're good enough to pick up and move on. Clearly, he knows how to get a new identity too. Like, why put yourself in this position and risk? Especially since you killed a cop. Like, they're gonna eventually look in on that guy.
Speaking of how many people he killed, there was like an ocean of bodies beneath his house.
That I didn't understand, because they talked about how he embalmed the other body. Was that supposed to be the embalming fluid that he just has him soaking
just
in?
Like in a swamp.
Or is it just a flooded basement?
I think it's just a flooded basement.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense.
I mean, there were so many bodies. How does it not smell? Like, they were, one of them was
it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it makes no goddamn sense. Like, just the ending just.
And if it is a leaky,
just like, oh, we might as well wrap this up.
If it is a leaky basement, I was thinking, like, when you go in, this guy has like 3 secret compartments in his house or whatever. But you can see when Sam Witwicky is running around in the basement, there's all the like pipes and stuff, and the guy has like a shrine of all the evidence anyone would ever need. He's got the girl's like old driver's license and troll dolls or whatever, the keys.
You're right.
He's got all this stuff, and it's just in the basement next to the pipes and shit. And I was like, what if somebody needs to fix a plumbing issue or something?
Right. The other issue I kind of had in this movie, we kind of glossed over it, was they He's like a tinkerer. He's able, like, we don't see him doing any of this. It looks like he's researching online, but he builds like a wireless interface for a camera from 2007.
Well,
this camera.
My point about this
is amazing at low light.
Yeah.
And it zooms in super smoothly. I sold cameras in 2008. There were not cameras that could do what he was doing.
They certainly weren't there in 1999.
That a consumer would have. Right. So they do all this, but he does this stupid thing that's in like every like Law and Order and NCIS, where he's got this super fuzzy low light video from his friend running through the house, and it's like a single frame of the video has a dead body looking out through a vent, and it's like how did he see the single frame? And then he had to zoom in and enhance, zoom in and enhance, zoom in and enhance. It's like, if you had to zoom in and enhance that much to see what it was, how did the fuck did that catch your eye in the first place to even stop to look at it?
And it doesn't even look like a skull or something. Like, it's a woman's face in a bag, and it's all like, she's like beaten up or whatever. So it doesn't look like a human face at a glance. Like, it doesn't, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Even more to the tinkering point, this kid has every single hobby. This kid has every single hobby in the world. Like, you go into his bedroom, and he's into like all these different bands. I'm assuming he's into System of a Down too. I felt like that was supposed to be something that he would be listening to. But then he's also into
he was actually
he's into like Led Zepp, the Stooges. He's wearing a Ramones shirt, like all this stuff that I don't associate with this kid. And then he's also
that was very much of that
he plays
time.
Guitar.
How many people did you see wearing?
I mean.
Yeah,
I think it's of that time in movies, because they're just like, oh, he's into rock, just rock and roll. He plays guitar. I fishes. Apparently,
so many people in high school who wore Ramones shirts that did not listen to the Ramones. It was just a cool.
He's
shirt
fantastic
that
at Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon. He's got like a pretty eclectic selection of iTunes songs. I don't know. It just felt like he's into whatever's cool.
I think the music, a lot of it was supposed to be his dad's music. I think he mentioned that some of it was his dad's. And a lot of that stuff was in his dad's study. Like, a lot of the places where he was doing his peeping was in his dad's study. So
it just felt like he has every hobby in the world.
No, I agree. Absolutely. He was just like every teenager mashed into one.
Yeah. And he's also like an absolute slob. And I know that's kind of a point early in the film, but it's kind of like it's over the top. It's like distracting.
I agree. Well, a lot of the stuff he got, his mannerisms, he actually interviewed people who were under house arrest as teenagers and picked up that thing. That's like, he actually asked to put that Twinkie scene in where he built like the Tower of Twinkies.
But that shit is like
somebody he interviewed.
That shit is like the second day that he's on house arrest, and it's not even just like a tower of wrapped Twinkies. He's got like food laying all over the ground.
Well, and we don't actually know at that point.
And then
the friend was gone for a month.
That also makes me wonder about Trinity's parenting skills. Like, she really let him run wild, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, I think I get the feeling that he was a really good kid before this, and so she just doesn't really know how to handle a bad kid.
Yeah, she needs a strong father figure to come in there, like David Morse. No, I think I thought...
Yeah, I honestly thought they were going to lean into that more. I did like that interaction in the kitchen.
There's so many things that I thought they were going to lean into more. Yeah, I like that scene too.
So I think we need to wrap up. I think we're going to have to burn through the news pretty quick because this episode's going a little bit long. But I just kind of wanted to throw out a couple things.
Yeah, I want to throw out one thing too. This is like neither here nor there, and this isn't really the podcast to talk about it. And I like that they cast a person of color for his best friend. But I just wanted to say that plays into this stereotype of Asian American men being like non-sexual and non-threatening, because his character is basically a recast of Stella, the smart old lady nurse in the original one.
Yeah.
So that kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
I didn't really see that. I think this is very much at the time you often had an Asian best friend in teen movies, and that actor had played it in several movies.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But, would you rather it have just been another white guy or not? Because like Asian men are very underrepresented.
I don't have any answers.
In Hollywood,
I don't have any answers. I'm not saying I would change anything.
So what you're saying is you don't want to see Asian men in movies.
I'm just pointing it out because I think it's important to talk about. But apparently you don't.
No, I think the representation is very important, but I'm glad. I think it's good that he had a role.
I think, you have a very white male, Eurocentric. He
talked about banging ladies in Hawaii, bro. He was sexually viable.
Cis, hetero, white male, Eurocentric viewpoint of the world, and that's fine. I accept you for who
you're the one who's like, I don't think he should be in this movie. You're the one saying you didn't think he should be in the movie.
You're putting words into my mouth now.
And that it seemed weird that he was.
You're putting words into my mouth,
and then
which
you were the one who said he wasn't sexually
which is
viable. You're the one who said that.
interesting.
You literally
of an
said he's not
Irish
sexually
German
viable,
man.
but he talked about how he was going to go to Hawaii and bang ladies at the beginning of the movie. He said it in Spanish.
Listen, you potato farmer.
And oh shit! You son of a bitch.
Kill
All right,
Whitey.
we should get into the news. So we, fuck. So.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the news now. Movie news.
News. Hellraiser's getting rebooted again.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be rebooted a couple years ago. They made a movie for like super cheap just to keep the rights, but it is getting remade.
Who's the director on
that?
that?
To be something you're interested in. David Bruckner, who did the Ritual.
Yeah, that's right. I have not seen The Ritual, but a bunch of my friends are pretty excited for this remake because of Bruckner. So
yeah, I've never seen the original. He also did VHS, which I know you've seen that one because you had that going at one of your shindigs.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's doing that. So that should be coming out in the next couple years. So yeah, that's something. I don't know how wide of a release because they've actually rebooted that a couple of times. But a lot of them were like straight to DVD.
David S. Goyer is producing and writing the script, so I think it'll get a good amount of.
Green Hornet moved over to Universal, and they're looking at redoing Green Hornet. I actually really like.
We can rewatch the Seth Rogen one.
Yeah, I actually liked the Seth Rogen one, so I'm kind of cool with that. This news I wanted to squeeze into the last episode, but we were running a little long. But Chris Evans is in negotiations to be in the Little Shop of Horror remake as the dentist. That was Steve Martin in the last version, so that's coming out. He's in negotiations for that, and Firestarter is getting rebooted again.
The Drew Barrymore one. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's
so there have been a couple of remakes.
Yeah.
For
What's
that
the other
already.
remake?
There was one that was made on TV. It was like a TV movie. So they're doing that. I think there was another movie as well. I could be wrong about that one, but they are redoing the new one, and they're saying that it's going to be influenced by Stranger Things, which is
I don't need that.
Everything is. But that's kind of all the news that I've got for in terms of remake movies. Obviously, a lot of things are delayed. Marvel announced some more delays on movies. As of right now, Warner Brothers is banking on movies being back in July, so they haven't pushed Tenet yet. Christopher Nolan's new movie, so I'm really hoping I'll get to see that in theaters this summer.
IMAX.
Yep, definitely. That's the main reason I went and saw Birds of Prey in IMAX was because they showed the first 10 minutes of.
Do you want
Tenet,
to take an office poll
of
when we think we'll be able to go back to theaters?
I think July. I think it'll be July.
I'm going to say August 1st. Actually, I don't even believe that. I think mid-August at the absolute earliest. So
Texas is opening their theaters this Friday.
Yeah, so I guess we both lose, right? I think that's a terrible idea.
Century, well, that's one city. I'm talking about like wide openings. That's one one state.
City of Texas.
I'm talking about like wide openings. So I'm thinking,
right. So wide.
I'm thinking late July.
I don't think there's going to be a wide opening until August.
I think it'll be July. Right. I think Warner Brothers is really going to push for Tenet.
Cool. Well, drinks at Bordner's for the winner.
All right. All right. Well, I think we should start wrapping this up. Alex, please tell us where our listeners can follow you on the social medias.
I'm on Instagram at Dyslexic, DYS Alex IC, and I have some new colorways of my world famous Social Distance Social Club shirt up on there. And then I'm also on Twitter.
Katrina and I just bought some.
Yeah,
yesterday.
I have yours ready to mail out. Thank you for that.
Oh, sweet.
And then I'm on Twitter at Pulisci, my last name, Pulisci.
Yep, check out his stuff. He's got some good pins. He's also got some fucked up repugnant shit shirts, which are pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm running low on those.
So support him. He does a lot of cool things. Support the podcast by going to patreon.com/MDXpods if you want to chip in $1 and help the show. That'd be great. You can follow us on social media on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at MDXpods. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you.